So welcome back to another crochet tutorial with Cozy Rosie UK, and today I am sharing with you how to crochet these really cute luggage style gift tags. They each have a little hole for you to pop some ribbon through and to attach them easily to your presents, and I'm going to show you some ideas on how you can personalise them on these plain ones, and of course how to create your very own Santa belt gift tag as well. Now, before we get started, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and of course the notification bell so that you never miss out another one of my crochet patterns or tutorials again. Let's find out those materials we need to make our very own gift tags. So the materials that you're going to need to make your very own crocheted gift tag is any size 3 or DK weight yarn. Now I'm going to be using this Sirdar Snuggly, which is a Cashmere Merino blend. Kind of a bit luxury, but then it is for a gift, so I thought why not. This is shade number 467 and it's kind of a light stone colour, which I think looks really nice, especially if you are going to add on some detail later. It makes it a nice base colour to add some contrast. If you're looking to make your own Santa belt version of this gift tag, I used a worsted weight yarn, so it's a little bit bigger. And this is kind of ideal if you're looking to make a tag for maybe a secret Santa or for that present that Santa brings your children. This is a great way of doing it. It works out slightly bigger than the other pattern. It's just a tiny bit bigger because we're using a bigger yarn. But if you're using a worsted weight to recreate this pattern, it's going to be 1/2 inch longer and 1/2 inch wider. So not that much difference because you're still going to use a 4mm crochet hook. Gather all of your materials and let's get started. So for row 1, we're going to begin by making a slip knot and placing that onto our hook. And we're going to start by making a chain of 13. So we just yarn over the hook and bring our hook through the loop on our hook and do that 13 times. So that's 2, 3, 4, and 13. We're then going to work 1 single crochet into the second chain from hook. So remembering that this loop doesn't count, there's our first chain right underneath our hook. We're going to put our hook underneath that second chain, but just under the top loop. We yarn over, bring that loop back up, yarn over and pull through 2, which is a US single crochet and a UK double crochet. We're then going to work 1 US single crochet or 1 UK double crochet into each chain across, making sure we don't work into those nice, easy to access big holes we make as we work these stitches. So work 1 single crochet into each chain across and I will meet you at the end of row 1. At the end of row 1, you should have a stitch count of 12 single crochets. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 and 12. And there's that chain that we missed. For rows 2 all the way up to row 13, we're going to do the following. We make a turning chain of 1 just by yarning over and bringing our hook through that loop on our hook. We then turn our work like a page in a book. And then we're working into that first stitch underneath our chain 1. So we're just inserting our hook, yarning over. We've got to make sure we've grabbed both those loops. Yarn over, bring your loop up, yarn over and pull through 2. And we're working 1 single crochet into each stitch across, which means that we will maintain our stitch count of 12 single crochets. We're going to repeat this for a total of 13 rows. I'm going to work a few rows and then show you how easy it is to count your single crochet rows so that you don't get confused. So I just wanted to show you how you can count your rows of single crochets nice and easily. As you can see on, if I hold it at the side, you can almost see 2 lines coming down it. From the other side, it's not so clear. There are still the 2 lines, but then you've got these random bits at the edges. So what I've actually completed 6 rows at this point. You can see it's a little bit curly, so if yours is, don't worry. And what this is showing you is where these lines are. This is 2 rows, this is 2 rows, and this is 2 rows. From this side, you've got 2 rows here, 2 rows there, and a single row on the top and the bottom. So have a look at both sides when you're counting and find the one where it looks like you've got the thicker bit at the bottom, and then it's just 2, 4 and 6. Now we're repeating row 2 so that we have a total row count of 13. So you should have one row above your 12, if that makes sense. So you should have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, and then one single row. So work all your rows of single crochet, and then I'm going to meet you back to create that shape of the top of our crochet gift tag. So once you've worked your 13 rows, you can see that you've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, and there's row 13 for me. And this is where we're going to start decreasing to create the top shape of our luggage tag. Now, as you can see, it's still a little bit curly, but don't worry, we are going to edge the whole way around, which will help to keep it flat. I'm also going to show you a very quick way of blocking this pattern without having to use pins. So going on to row 14, we're going to start with our turning chain of 1 that does not count as a stitch, and we're going to go straight into decreasing across the next 2 stitches. So we're working into that first stitch underneath our chain, and we're going to work a US single crochet 2 together, which is the same as a double crochet 2 together for a UK terminology. So we're first going to insert our hook into that first stitch. We yarn over and bring a loop up. We're then going to insert our hook into the next stitch, yarn over and bring up a third loop before we yarn over and pull through all 3 loops on our hook. And that reduces that stitch count by 1. We're then going to work 1 single crochet into each stitch across until we only have 2 stitches remaining. So I now have 2 stitches remaining. You can see the 2 V's there. And we're going to work our next decrease stitch across these 2 stitches. So we insert our hook, yarn over, bring a loop up, insert our hook into the next stitch, yarn over, bring a loop up, yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. So at the end of row 14, we reduced our stitch count by 2 with these 2 single crochets together, meaning that we only have a stitch count of 10. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10. For row 15, we're going to start with a turning chain of 1, and then we're going to work 1 single crochet into each of the stitches across. So remember that we're working directly underneath that chain 1, but where we did the decrease, it will look a little bit bigger. So just make sure you're inserting your hook into that first stitch to work your first single crochet, and then work 1 single crochet into each stitch across, and this will maintain our stitch count. We're not reducing or decreasing on this row. We're just kind of securing the decreases that we did and keeping the shape nice and smooth. Apologies for the squeaking, I'm a bit hot underneath my ring light, so it makes me a bit sweaty, sorry. So at the end of row 15, we should still have a stitch count of 10 single crochets. For row 16, we're repeating row 14, where we worked those 2 single crochets 2 together at the ends and the beginning of the row. So we start with our turning chain of 1, and we're inserting our hook underneath that first stitch, underneath that chain 1, yarn over, bring a loop up, and then we're inserting our hook into the next stitch, yarn over, bring another loop up, before we yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. We're then going to work 1 single crochet into each stitch across to the last 2 stitches, and when we've reached those last 2 stitches, again we're decreasing the stitch count again, so we're working another single crochet 2 together. So we insert the hook to the next stitch, bring our loop up, insert the hook into the next, yarn over the hook to bring up a third loop before we yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. So at the end of row 16, we should now have a stitch count of 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8. Now in row 17 we're going to be making a hole for us to be able to insert our ribbon or our twine so that we can tie our tags onto our presents. So we start by making a chain of 1, and then we're going to work 1 single crochet into the same stitch as our chain 1. We're then going to work 1 single crochet into the next 2 stitches. So that's 1 and 2. So we should now have 3 stitches. We're then going to work a chain of 2. So we just yarn over, pull our hook through, yarn over, pull our hook through, and we're going to skip 2 stitches as well. And those 2 chains are going to cover the spaces of those skipped stitches. We're then going to work 1 single crochet into each of the last 3 stitches. So we skip the next 2, insert our hook into the next, and work 1 single crochet and 1 single crochet into the remaining stitches. So at the end of row 17 you should have a little hole, and that's where we're going to be able to insert our ribbon or our twine, whatever we're using to tie on our tags. And you'll also have a stitch count of 6 single crochets with your chain 2 as well. So for row 18 we start with our turning chain of 1. We're then going to work a decrease across the first 2 stitches. So we insert, bring our loop up, insert into the next, bring another loop up before we yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. We're then going to work 1 single crochet into the next stitch. And then we've reached our chain 2, and into this chain 2 space we're going to work 2 single crochets. So we just insert our hook into the hole, yarn over, bring our loop up, and yarn over, pull through 2 as normal. We're working a second single crochet into that same chain 2 space. So we insert the hook, bring our loop up, yarn over and pull through 2. We're then going to work 1 single crochet into the next stitch, followed by our decrease across the last 2 stitches. So we insert, bring a loop up, insert into the next stitch, bring a loop up, yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. So we still have our little hole to work into, and now we have a stitch count of 6 single crochets. For row 19 we start with a chain of 1, and then we work 1 single crochet into that same stitch as our chain 1 and in each stitch across as well. We're maintaining our stitch count as 6 single crochets for row 19, and at the end of this row we're not going to turn, we're not going to do anything, we're going to move straight on to our edging. So at the end of row 19 you should have a stitch count of 6 single crochets, and from here we're going straight into our edging. Just to show that mine's also curling. Single crochets are the worst stitch for curling, but this edging we're going to do is to help. Not only is it going to tidy up the edges, but it's also going to help our gift tag stay nice and flat as well. So we're going to work in one big circle all the way back to where we start here. We're going to start by making a chain of 1, and then we're rotating our work to work into the ends of each of these rows. And we start with row 19 that we've just worked by working a single crochet into that hole right underneath our chain 1 and underneath that last stitch that we made. So we just insert the hook and work our single crochet. And you can see your ends of the rows here, all these holes as we go down. We're going to be working into those. So we've worked into this one to create a nice corner, and we're just going to insert our hook into the end of the next row and into the next. You can see just by giving it a little pull about, you can see those ends of the rows nice and easily. So by the time you reach the bottom here where our slip knot is, you will have worked 18 single crochets when you get to this slip knot. So we've already done 1 into that same stitch as the first one. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. So keep working all the way down to that corner where your slip knot is, placing 1 single crochet into each end of the row, and I'll meet you there for working our corner. I'm just working my 18th single crochet down, and I've reached the space where my slip knot is. So you should have a really nice looking edging coming down the side of your gift tag here. And what we're going to do where our slip knot is work our corner. So rather than just keep going round and making everything look a bit curly, we're going to work a corner stitch into where our slip knot is. So we're going to insert our hook into this space here, which is the other side of our chain. We're going to yarn over, bring a loop up and pull through 2 for our single crochet. We then chain 1 and we're working back into the same space again, working a second single crochet. And as we continue working along the other side of our chain, this will create a really nice corner. Now I'm also going to take a moment to work over the end of my tail here so I don't have to weave it in. And what we're doing here is we're working on the other side of our initial chain, and you can see that there's a hole. If you just pull up a little bit, you'll see there's a hole where the 2 parts of the chain are crossed, and that's where we're inserting our hook, right under there. And we're just working 1 single crochet into the other side of our chain. We're only going to be making 10 of these to reach the next to the next place where we're working our next corner. I'm working over that tail the whole time so I don't have to weave that in later. So once we have just one, I'm going to move my tail out of the way. Once we have just 1 chain remaining, this is where we're going to work our corner to match up this lovely corner that we have over here. So in this final chain, we're going to work 1 single crochet, a chain 1, and a further single crochet back into that same space again, and that creates our next corner. We're then going to work 1 single crochet into the end of each row all the way back up to our very last stitch before the start of our final row. See where that chain is, where we turned? So that's where we're going to meet. Just have a good, you can have a pull around and find that first hole that you need to be inserting your hook into to make sure you're putting them into the end of each row. So work 1 single crochet into the end of each row all the way back up to the start of our final row, and that's where we're going to place our final corner. It can feel a little bit tricky when you're working in these decrease rows as to where the row ends are. They seem a little big in comparison to the other side, but just place them as best you can. And that's me back to my final row end, just underneath that first stitch of the final row that we made. And this is where we're going to place our corner. So if you can see, I'm all the way back up to the top. I've worked in here. I'm going to work into this hole here, working 1 single crochet, a chain 1, and a further single crochet. And that gives us our nice corner. We're then going to work 1 single crochet into each of the stitches across the top of row 19. And once we've made our way all the way back to that first single crochet that we made, I'm just going to slip stitch into that last stitch I've worked into, and then we're ready to fasten off. Should be laying flatter, not 100%. So I'm just going to grab my scissors and I'm going to fasten off, leaving a nice long tail to allow me to weave in and use my hook to bring that through. Now, if like me, your project's a little bit curly, it probably just needs a little bit of a stretch around to kind of put the stitches where we need them to be. If it's still a bit curly, the easiest way to prevent that from happening is, of course, blocking. Now, the quickest way is just if you grab your steam iron, put it on a steam setting with a tail, don't hold the actual tag, just hold the tail and waft it in front of your steam coming out of your iron, and it will relax quite a lot and become flat. I'm going to quickly do mine. I very lightly steamed mine then. I also caught my thumb a little bit, but that's okay. I'm just going to make sure that it's laying flat, and then you just need to leave it to dry. If need be, you can place something on it just to make sure that that is going to dry flat rather than have to pin it out. This end isn't a problem, it's just that little corner there. So I'm going to leave that on top to dry.
Thank you so much for joining me for today's tutorial. If you've enjoyed it, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And of course, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell, and I will see you for the next pattern tutorial.